job a couple of years ago, and now he's absolutely killing it. So, like I said, very motivating guy to talk to, and I'm excited to hear your wisdom. So you can go ahead and take it away, Dan.
All right, Andrew, thank you so much. Let me get my screen share here. So just let me know if y'all can see that. We good there?
Yep, you're good.
All right, cool. Well, thank you all so much. I'm really appreciative, Andrew and Kathy, Leslie. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really, truly grateful for this opportunity. And for the group, just to mention, when I got started in real estate in 2015, the first thing I did was to sign up for TRIA. And I've been a member ever since. And I was not asked to make this pitch, but I will definitely tell you the ROI that you get from this is incredible, and use your membership and get involved, and you won't be disappointed. So this is kind of a very cool opportunity for me, given this is where I started. So give you a little bit of background. As I said, I started my company in January 2015, and I started as a side hustle, just like many of you are probably doing, and I know so many of us in TRIA have done. That's kind of how I got started. And I started from my couch with no experience, basically just started putting together a website and researching how I could get started. We had just had our second child. It's funny, I was kind of going through the audience as we got started, and Nikita, I'm going to call you out. I know you turned your screen off, but I saw you there holding and nursing your baby as you were watching the call here, and I thought that was pretty amazing because I've been there. I know it. I feel where you're at there, and I applaud you for doing double duty right now. That's awesome. So I had a 15-year career in the service and distribution industries. I was a regular W-2 corporate employee. And I just decided that I wanted to be financially free. I wanted to raise my 3 kids and be able to control my time and control my future. And so I set to work on that in 2015. In 2019, I quit my W-2 job. So had done what I wanted to do to get myself at a place of my real estate career that I felt like I was ready to go. So I made that jump, put my notice in, and got out. And people ask me what I do now, and I explain to them that my job is to be a deal engineer. I'm not just a buy and hold investor. I'm not just a wholesaler. I'm not just an investor. My job is to find a way to help a seller with a solution for their problem and engineer a transaction, be it for myself or another partner of mine, in order to engineer a deal for them. So a little more real quick background. My company right now is pretty lean, and that's intentional. And so we have 2 full-time people, myself, I'm the owner, of course. I oversee the strategy of the company, administration, and then the disposition. So once we have a deal, if I'm going to wholesale that deal, I'm the one that's talking with other investors. Nate Funkhauser is my vice president of business development. His main job is acquisitions. So day in, day out, he's working to deal with inbound leads, make outbound calls, work on developing, finding deals for us. I have a couple of contractor crews that are 1099. They do my renovations. I have a bookkeeper, and then I've worked with a couple of investor-friendly real estate agents, and they're really, really key part of my team. They help me with boots on the ground. They help me with sales of properties we flipped, and also some pocket listings and finding some opportunities. So as quick background, that's kind of who I am and where I've come from. So I wanted to start, before we got into what a financial foundation is, I wanted to real briefly talk about 2 myths of real estate investing that I'm sure you all have thought about and have heard, and I just wanted to hit on these real quick. The first myth of real estate investing is I can quickly and easily build a real estate career with little or no money. And the reality is this can be done, but it's a slow grind. And without a financial plan, it'll challenge the upside potential of your business. You will not be able to scale as quickly without access to capital, money. Without scaling, your upside from the world of real estate investing is going to be drastically reduced. The second myth, on the flip side of that, some people say, boy, to buy lots of real estate and become financially free, I'm going to need a ton of cash. I know that having I know that having rental properties is a great way to produce recurring cash flow. But to buy those rental properties, where am I going to come up with all this money? Well, the reality is this can be true also, but it is not the desired or necessary path. If you keep socking your money away under a pillow without leveraging it, you'll be sleeping on pennies to the dollar of what you could gain much sooner had you established a financial foundation. In reality, the truth is that neither of these extremes are the most likely reality for the majority of investors. And I think that's really important to hit on. The reality is that is not how it works for most people. So if you're sitting there getting started in real estate investing and feeling one of those two pressures, don't freak out. The truth of real estate investing, in my experience, is that you need to balance being aggressive and taking calculated risks in the short term with being patient and conservative in the long term. So again, that's really critical as a base of what we're going to talk about today to understand. And I'll talk about that a little more as we go. But to do this, you really need to have a sound financial foundation. So what is a financial foundation and how do you build it? A financial foundation is the process of mapping how you will access capital, again, money, in order to strategically and efficiently build your investing business in a way that puts you in a position to win negotiations, to lock up deals, and to build your long-term portfolio. So if you're sitting there wondering how you get started and get into this game, I want to take you through a bit of that. And the key starts with having a strong financial foundation. So again, you need capital to sustain a real estate investing business. If you're in this for the long haul, you're going to need capital. You must plan ahead, okay? Do not show up the day of your first closing and say, oh man, okay, so what am I going to do about figuring out this money thing? I got a house under contract and now what am I going to do? Plan before that, plan now. Start thinking about it now. You must understand leverage and the power that financial partnerships bring. And you must be down with OPM. OPM is other people's money. You need to understand how to use and leverage other people's money. So that is the crux of what we're going to talk about. I'd like to go through building a financial foundation through 5 strategies to accessing capital. And I've used all 5 of these strategies. I think they come, at different times. You may want to use different strategies. Some of you are going to have access to some of these. Some of you are not, and that's entirely cool. That is okay. That is no problem. But I'm hoping that through this discussion, 1 or 2 of these are going to pique your interest and say, okay, I can do that. Let me go down the path of figuring out how I'm going to use that strategy to build a foundation to grow my business. And I'm not going to go super deep into any of these 5. I want to give you sort of an overview tonight. I'll give you my contact information at the end. If you'd like to reach out, if I could help you in any way, refer you to some folks, I'd be more than happy to do that. That's not a pitch for anyone specifically. It's more just I want to help because I've gone down this path my own and mentors have helped me with it, and I'd be happy to assist you. So the first strategy that I want to cover are HELOCs. A HELOC stands for Home Equity Line of Credit. A HELOC allows you to tap equity that you have in your house, your primary house that you're sitting in right now, and use it for other purposes. So if you own your property, this could be a good option for you. The cool thing is that you can borrow up to 90% of the equity you have in your home. So if you own a home, just for an easy number here, that is valued at $200,000 and you've paid off that entire house, you don't have a mortgage on it, you could borrow up to $180,000 off of your property to use. The great thing about a HELOC is that these funds are always within arm's reach, meaning you can pull them quickly to use when needed. And of course, in real estate investing, quick access to capital is really important. So once you're approved for that HELOC, it's going to be an account that you can access on demand when you need it. The rates on HELOC are very good. While they're variable, they're generally, again, awesome. And I have a HELOC right now, and the rate is 3%, which is crazy. It's usually around 4.25, but with rates where they are right now, borrowing money for 3% is pretty awesome. So the downside to a HELOC is that you are borrowing against your house. So the key there is don't blow it. There's risk with any one of these strategies. Of course, you know, if you're going to get out of bed in the morning, there's risk in anything you do. The risk in this is if, you know, for some reason your deal does not go well, you're going to need to be able to keep those payments going. And one other thing I should mention with HELOCs are that you're paying interest only. So you've got time to pay back what you owe on it, but you do want to make sure that you're making a sound investment. All right, the number 2 strategy to access capital for your financial foundation are hard money loans. Hard money loans are short-term loans that allow you to quickly access money to finance an investment property. They can be used for wholesale deals if you have to take title briefly. They definitely can be used for flips. And then they can be used short-term for rental renovations. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But the cool thing here is hard money loans can be used for a variety of deals. So hard money loans are great because they can be accessed quickly as well. And they can allow you to market to sellers that you can close in a quick time frame. Now, let me take a step back. A hard money loan is working through a lender. It's not a institutional lender in such as a bank. This would not be through a bank. This would be through an institutional a private hard money lender that is set up to work with investors like ourselves. So this is not a bank loan. This is different than that. The downside to hard money loans are that they're a little more expensive. Most hard money loans I've seen are around 10 to 14% interest, plus 1 to 3 origination points. So what that means is an origination point is basically 1% of what you're buying the property for. So if you bought property for $100,000, 1 point would be $1,000. So you do have a bit more expense. That's the trade-off for the convenience. Basically, you're getting that convenience. You're not having to put as much of your money out, so you're mitigating your risk, but you do have to pay for that, and make it worth their while. So be sure, the biggest thing is just to build that number into your project cost. When you bid on a project and you know you're planning to use a hard money loan, just go ahead and plan that in. What I typically do is I'll plan for 6 months or 9 months, just depending on the scope. If I'm doing a flip, if I finish the job before that, sweet. That's frankly motivation for me to finish sooner, because then I'm not spending as much, and that what I had budgeted to spend on interest is going to go back into my pocket. So that's kind of a way to mitigate your risk and make sure you're planning accordingly. All right. So the number 3 strategy for ways to build your financial foundation are private investors. Private investors can be family, they can be friends, your dentist, your neighbor, your CPA, anyone really. So there are many people that have cash but don't have time. They'd like to find somewhere to park that cash for a solid return. And if they like you and trust you, they'll invest in you. So think of someone like a dentist or a doctor or a CPA. Their time is really pretty rigid. They don't have a flexible job where they can just be dropping it to go deal with flipping a house. So what they're looking for are ways to get their cash in play, get their income in play. Most are involved in the stock market. Most are involved in other things, but they're always looking to diversify. So working with private investors is a great option. What I did is I made a slide deck, about 8 slides, that just described who I am, what my business does. I put a couple of past renovations on there to explain how the finances work and show that investing with me would be a sound opportunity for them. And I just went and I reached out to folks, gave them a call and said, hey, look, I'm raising some money for my real estate investment business. I'd like to send you this slide deck for your review and then schedule a call and talk through it. And it's as easy as that to just kind of get the ball rolling. Some people are going to say yes. Some people are going to say no. That's cool. It's not for everybody. This is a great way to line up money. The great thing about private investors is that they're typically a bit easier to work with, and you can get a bit better of a rate. So generally, I offer private investors an 8 to 10% rate, and that's better than if they're parking their money in a savings account or a CD. So, they're probably getting, what, 0.1% if their money's sitting in a traditional savings account. This is a way to give them a good return and also get your projects rolling. The downside is that if you screw up, you could damage relationships with these investors, but you won't do that because you're going to make a great investment. So, you of course don't want to borrow 100 grand from your dentist, lose all his money, and then have to go in there and hope that he's not going to yank all your teeth out the next time you visit him. But again, if you have a sound plan, a good strategy, working with private investors is an awesome way to build your financial foundation so that you can get out and get your investing career going. So the fourth strategy here to access capital for your financial foundation are self-directed IRAs. And this is a pretty buzzy thing right now, pretty buzzworthy. So you probably heard a little bit about this. You can definitely look into it. TRIA has some great resources, has done some great programs about self-directed IRAs. If you have a 401k or a Roth IRA, you can transition that into a self-directed IRA. And self-directed IRAs are great because they allow you to pull money from your IRA and use that money towards other purposes, such as buying real estate. So this is an awesome way to fund yourself at a low cost. So again, you're borrowing from yourself, and you're using that money to invest in your business. Self-directed IRAs are great for tax benefits. They're quickly accessible. Anytime you're borrowing from yourself, you can get it. It's a good opportunity because it's quickly accessible and they're low cost. So those are all the pluses. The downside is that you have to put the proceeds back into the IRA. And this isn't really a downside. It's just something you need to be aware of. So it's a great way to grow your retirement savings. And self-directed IRAs are awesome for wholesale deals. So what happens a lot is once you start getting some deals going and making some money through your real estate investments, you're going to get a fair bit of cash coming in, hopefully, if you're doing things the right way. And with that added income comes added tax liability. You've got to pay capital gains on your flips, for example. And so what you'll be looking to do is say, okay, how can I make money but not have to pay Uncle Sam on it right now? How can I defer those tax payments? Well, self-directed IRAs are an awesome way to do that. So if you bought a house through your self-directed IRA and either flipped it or wholesaled it, you put that money back into your IRA. Say you made 20 grand on that deal. You put that money back into your IRA. You don't have to pay taxes now on that money. And then when you turn 59 and a half, you can start pulling that money at a much lower tax rate. So it's a great way to defer taxes and to keep more of your money from your dear Uncle Sam there. So that's number 4. Number 5 strategy to access capital for your financial foundation are conventional loans. So conventional loans are bank loans. And this strategy, in my opinion, works really well for rental properties. And the reason for that is these are longer term loans at a pretty low interest rate, but a stable interest rate. And the nice thing when you use a conventional loan for a rental property is your tenants are paying, the tenants are paying the loan down for you. So it's pretty awesome that you can get this loan set up, get a tenant in there, and because it's over a long enough duration and the monthly payments are low enough, you can have the tenants paying that. So conventional loans are also great for the BRRRR process. And this is another buzzy term. You probably have heard about BRRRR. If you haven't, a quick Google search and you'll learn all about it, I promise. But this BRRRR stands for buy, renovate, rent. I always screw this up, guys. Buy.
So do I. Buy.
Every time, I swear.
I do too, especially when I'm speaking to people, I get nervous. Buy, renovate, rent, buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat.
Yes.
Thank you, Kathy. All right, got it. I always get tongue-tied on that.
I
But
do. I
the way
believe me. I'm so with you. It happens to me all the time.
all right. Make me feel better. Thank you. So what the BRRRR process is basically you're buying a property that needs to that you're buying at a discount because it needs to be fixed up. You can buy it using any of the strategies that we just covered. One that gets used regularly, and I alluded that I would come back to this earlier, is hard money loans. So you can buy a property at a discount that needs work using a hard money loan. But you of course don't want to stay in that hard money loan forever because you're getting 10 to 14%, you're paying 10 to 14% on it, right? So you go in, you renovate that property, adding value to it. You rent the property out once you finish that process, and then you go refinance it into a conventional loan. So instead of paying that hard money loan with all that high interest, you can get a 30-year, 15, 30-year conventional loan that you are paying maybe what, 3.5% on. And then you pull, through the process of doing that refinance, you pull the money you put into it back out of the property. And you take that money and you go do it again. So you're not having to keep any of your own money in if you don't want. That value you've created in the process of renovating the property is what you're going to be getting your loan based off of. You pull your money back out and you go do it again. So this is a way that if you're sitting there with no or one, two, or it doesn't matter how many rental properties you may have and you want to add to your portfolio, this process is great, and it utilizes conventional loans to get there. Conventional loans take a bit of work to initiate, as you'll be working with a bank who will want to review your finances. So just know, again, some of those earlier strategies I talked about are quick, get you that money quickly, because when you're making an offer, you're going to generally want to tell people that you can get their house closed in a couple weeks to a month. Well, conventional loans probably are going to take 30 to 60 days to get lined up. So that's why they work on the back end of a BRRRR, or if you're straight buying a rental property that you've got a little bit more time on, that's why it works. All right, so those are the 5 strategies to access capital for your financial foundation. But wait a minute, bonus strategy. I would not be adding enough value for you if I did not give you a bonus strategy. And this one is the holy grail of financing, in my opinion, seller financing. Love seller financing. And this took me a while to figure out. And it also took me a little while to get the courage to start discussing with homeowners. But seller financing is awesome. I like to use seller financing for flips. Others like to use it for long-term strategies like sandwich leases, where you're basically financing it on one side from the seller and you're bringing a tenant in, pay that portion to the seller, and then you're keeping the difference. For me, it's straightforward on flips. I like to use it for that. But either way, you should dig into it a little bit more. So there's 2 strategies within this seller financing umbrella that I want to talk about. And one is not technically the seller financing it, but it involves the seller, and it's called a mortgage takeover. So a mortgage takeover is you go in, the seller has an existing mortgage on their property. So that they've got a bank loan, say it's with Wells Fargo or somebody that's just sitting out there, they're paying on it right now, but they need to sell this house. You go in and you buy the property from them, but you leave their mortgage in place. And then you start making the payments on this mortgage, so that while you're doing the renovation or while you're doing whatever you're doing with the property, you're taking over their payments. You own the house, but you're taking over their payments. There are a couple of, if you dig into this, couple of specifics you have to be aware of. For example, if the bank could call the loan if they know that this process is in place. Not all lenders love this process, but it is very common, and there are ways around that as well. So there's a few intricacies that I would definitely recommend getting familiar with. I've never had a problem with this strategy, knock on wood, and I love it. And it's a great way to use financing that's in place. You don't have to initiate financing. You don't have to pay any origination costs. And as I just talked about on the last slide, because the seller is generally going to have favorable conventional financing, the terms of that are going to be very good. So this is a way for you to tap capital quickly. just have to be kind of comfortable with the process. So like I said, I'm going to give you a general overview tonight, but you may want to dig into this further or let me know and I'd be happy to give you some more info. Seller finances the deal. So if a seller does not have a mortgage on the property, if they've paid their mortgage off free and clear, the seller themselves can finance this property for you. This is my all-time favorite. I love, love, love this process. So what I do a lot is I go in and I'll talk to the seller and they'll be like, boy, I got to sell this house. It's terrible. The house is in rough shape. I don't live in town. I don't want to deal with this thing. I just need someone to get it off my hands. And I say to them, well, Mr. Seller, yes, it needs work. I would be more than happy to help. Would you be open to taking payment installments on this? And the way that works is you can do it one of two ways. You can either, so you're buying the house, same thing, you're buying the house up front. A lot of times you'll want to give them a deposit so they know you're serious. And then you can pay them in installments each month over the period of time you own the house and pay the balance at the end. Or you can just pay one balloon payment at the end. So I had a deal recently where I bought a house, again, just to pick round numbers, I'll say it was for $100,000. And I talked to the seller about seller financing and I gave them $10,000 down. And I told them that I would pay them the remaining $90,000 at the time I closed, sold the house, but no later than 12 months out. Now I knew this was probably a 3 to 6 month rehab, rehab and resale process. So I gave myself a bit of a buffer, but I didn't go out of the gate offering them any interest, and they didn't ask for interest. So this is a way where you can get the seller to kind of hold that money until the end in exchange for them knowing that you're gonna get that property off of their hands. And this is a process that works really well. Again, you just have to kind of have the comfort level to bring it up in discussion. So again, it's access to capital with little money down and little red tape. Love, love seller financing. Okay, 2 slides left. I wanted to hit a couple of topics that are near and dear to me, and I know probably may affect some of you watching today. So I'm just going to hit these 2 slides pretty quickly, but it's just really, really important, and I want to make sure to hit on them for you. Analysis paralysis. If you are getting started, you may listen to all the podcasts, you may read all the books, go to all the TRIA meetings, but you still haven't done that first deal. So my question to you is, have you ever met new parents who feel they are ready, like totally ready, and have all the answers to raise a child when their baby pops out? No, they're all freaking out. I have 3 kids, and I freaked out every time. You never feel totally ready. Similarly, in real estate, you don't need the answer to every question before you dive in. You need to be prepared. If you're having a baby, you've got 9 months to figure out, hey, do I need to get a crib? Do I need to get some baby clothes, some diapers? You take some steps, but you're not ever going to be totally ready. So the same thing here, prepare, but you've got to take action. Action leads to education. And I talk to a lot of wholesalers, a lot of people getting involved in real estate. And the biggest thing I tell them is, don't be one of those people that falls off the wagon in 3 months because you're afraid to take action. Guys, I'm telling you, the first one's the hardest. They get easier every single time you do it. And you just have to take a few steps here. Step 1, seek mentors and advisors. You've come to TRIA, you are in the right place. There are mentors, there are advisors in all the areas that TRIA is involved. As I told you earlier, very first thing I did was sign up for TRIA. Second thing that I did was start looking for a mentor. And I reached out to 6 people. 4.5 of them ignored me. 1 of them kind of listened to me, and 1 of them took me seriously, gave me an education, helped me out. And in turn, I've made him a lot of money over the years too. And that's kind of the way this is supposed to work. So the key with a mentor and advisor is you need to provide them value. Everybody's busy. They're not going to just educate you for free. I'm sorry, it would be great if they did, but that's just not reality. And certainly you can understand why. So help them. And even if you're new, there are ways that you can help them. Drive for dollars, meaning drive around neighborhoods and look for houses that are run down, have long grass, don't take their trash out on trash day. Make a list of those houses and get them to your mentor. Help your mentor connect with them And then they can walk you through the process from there of how do you take a lead and turn it into a deal. Help them with marketing. One of the things I do are door hangers. I put door hangers on doors to say that I'm interested in buying your house. Do that for them. Take an afternoon and put sticky notes out for them or put door hangers out. Help them. And in turn, they're going to give you the time and walk through the process, and you're going to learn a ton. Prepare by building a team. You don't have to have your team perfectly set or set forever, but there are a few key people I would suggest finding now that you could call when the time is right. Lenders. Again, TRIA's got a great list of lenders. You can also talk to banks in the area, different people. Closing attorney. There are some great closing attorneys local and in our markets that work with investors so that when you get a contract signed, you can slide it over to that attorney, copy in the person you're buying the house from, and get that ball rolling quickly and seamlessly. An inspector. So if you're new, you may not feel super comfortable that you are totally knowledgeable in all the different aspects of what could be wrong with a house when you're out looking for a deal. What I would suggest is get an inspector that you can work with and build a relationship with them. You do not, with an investment property that you're looking to potentially wholesale, I would suggest that you don't need to do a full inspection, but do what I call a big item inspection. Have somebody come in, inspect the roof, inspect the crawl space, inspect the hot water tank, inspect the HVAC, and just give the property a once over. That's what flippers, that's what investors are looking for, are those big ticket items. I know what cosmetics are going to cost, but do I have to do those big ticket items? If you're not comfortable with it, get a relationship with an inspector, pay them $200, go out to the property and give you a list. I can tell you that if you came to me with a list from an inspector, I'd be like, this person is on it. They've got their ducks in a row and they're prepared. The other one is an insurance carrier. If you're going to take title of a property, you need to get insurance for that property, even if it's just for a couple of days or weeks. Insurance carriers are a dime a dozen, but build a relationship with somebody that you feel comfortable with. And this is the most important thing to me. Study your market, right? The more you know about your market, the more comfortable you're going to be to focus on that area. Focus on a specific area to farm. So this is another thing. When a wholesaler calls me up and says, hey, I'm getting into wholesaling. All right, cool. So what market are you working on? Well, I'm wholesaling throughout the whole state of North Carolina. Look, you cannot be an expert on the entire state of North Carolina or the whole Southeast. I understand that down the road, people can virtually wholesale and take on more, but when you're getting started, I would strongly encourage you to be the expert in Raleigh, or be the expert in Durham, or be the expert in Fayetteville. Focus on a specific area and become the expert in that area. Study that area every day for 30 minutes. Go on Zillow or Redfin or wherever that you look for properties and know what's coming on the market. Know what's going under contract, know what the values are. Every single night after I get my kids to bed, I flip through Zillow and I see what's come on that day, what's gone off, and kind of get a feel for what the values are. And that way, you know what your market is, so you know whether you're really getting a deal. And if you know that you're getting a deal, it's way easier to break analysis paralysis. So if you take those 3 steps right there, I promise you, it gets way easier to sign that first contract and get that first deal going. And the last thing is take action. You just have to do it, guys. It is scary the first time. I will not lie to you. But if you've done everything else leading up to this, you're going to be gold. All right, last slide I want to hit on. Again, as I mentioned at the beginning of the discussion, I started my business as a side hustle. And for me, it was just a situation where, I had a growing family. I wanted a way to to make more money for myself, quite honestly. I didn't want to have to depend on other people the rest of my life for my compensation. So I said, look, I'm gonna build this side hustle. And then I started doing it and got those first couple deals done. And I said, boy, this is freaking awesome. This is what I want to do the rest of my life. This is really cool. So if you get to that point, here's my advice. Financial freedom through real estate is attainable. Like anything good, it takes work. But if it's your goal, I promise you, you can get there. This is not rocket science or brain surgery. You can get there. Here's how. Develop a personal plan. Do not worry about how many deals you need to do or rentals you need. Focus on the cash flow that you need. I get so frustrated with social media and listening to podcasts, and it's like, I got 100 doors, I got 300 doors. Well, all right, that tells maybe a portion of the story, right? If all those doors that you have, all those rental doors that you have are in a partnership, or you have a loan for most of that, you may not be making that much money off of each of those doors. So that might not help with your overall cash flow of where you want to go to get to your goal. My suggestion is focus on cash flow. So if you need to make $120,000, again, round easy numbers here, you need to make $120,000 to cover all of your finances, your mortgage, everything you would need to walk away from your job. That's $10,000 a month. If you need $10,000 a month, focus on that. How do you get to that? That could be a couple of really good cash flowing properties, or it could be a couple dozen of mediocre cash flowing properties. But get that number and then build to there to get to your personal plan, and don't be overwhelmed by what you're seeing on social media. The next thing I would say, to get where you want to go fastest, pick a lane and stay in that lane. You can't be everywhere. Decide what your focus area is and stick to it to become an expert. So when you start having some success in real estate, you're going to have people reach out to you. And so I'll give you my example. My focus, my lane is residential real estate. I do single family or small multifamily, single family duplexes, triplexes. That's kind of my thing. I flip them, I wholesale them, and I rent them. That's my lane. So as I've gotten to know people, they'll reach out and say, hey, do you want to invest in this apartment syndication? Or do you want to invest in doing self-storage? Or do you want to invest in a commercial building? Those might be things I pursue down the road, but to get where you want to go from point A, from a job to a career in real estate where you're controlling your life, pick a lane and stay in that lane. It's the quickest way to get from point A to point B. Third thing, be patient. 1% of people are going to get this done overnight and get out of their job. The other 99% of us who, like me, have 5 mouths to feed aren't going to get there overnight, and that's okay. Just keep chipping away at it. You'll get there. And the last thing, bet on yourself. Don't let anyone else tell you you can't do it. If you've taken all the steps we've discussed tonight, I promise you that you can do it. And honestly, if you've done all these things, bet on yourself. And if it doesn't work out, you can go find another crappy job. I promise you, there's going to be jobs out there. But don't be afraid to take that leap and bet on yourself and believe in yourself. So that's it. That's what I've got for tonight. I hope that some of these things have resonated with you, and really, really grateful for the opportunity to be here. If there are any questions, Andrew, I don't know how we are on time, but I'm happy to help with a couple questions if we have them. If not, I'd love for you to reach out, connect, stay in touch, and see if we can help each other grow our business.
Thank you, Dan. This has been awesome. This has been so good. Jackie, do we have time for some questions?
We do. We have a few minutes. And I think we've got a couple of questions in the chat. I don't know, Andrew, can you see them or I can read them?
Yeah, so one question we have here is how often can you borrow from a self-directed IRA? And a second question is what situation is best for a mortgage takeover?
Okay, great questions, great questions. So I don't want to speak to something I don't know on the self-directed IRA question. I would definitely, if whoever asked that question, if you want to shoot me a message, I can connect you with a great self-directed IRA agent that they can definitely answer those questions. To my knowledge, there is not a transaction number. It more or less is what you have the available capital for and able to invest. So to my knowledge, in my experience, that's been the situation. I've never depleted mine and I've never done like 10 in a month. But I could, so that's what I know, but I'd love to be happy to get you the answer on that. Best situation for a mortgage takeover. Mortgage takeover is great for a flip. It works great for a flip because, again, you're tapping into the owner's existing mortgage. So you're financing that deal without having to set up your own financing. The other reason I like to use it for a flip personally is the longer you're doing it, the more likelihood is that the loan could get called. So if you're just using a mortgage takeover for a flip for 3, 6, 9 months, your chances are lower of the bank. Frankly, honestly, in my experience, as long as the bank's getting paid, they don't care. But just as a caveat, I do want to mention that they could call that loan. Therefore, for me, I wouldn't do a mortgage takeover for 10 years and just keep paying the mortgage and renting the property out. For some people do. That's just not how I'd proceed.
Yeah, Dan, just so, if mortgage takeover is the same as subject to, I don't know if it is, but Kathy Russell, who had to jump off, guys, she's done a ton of subject to. If you reach out to her attorney's office, she's actually, the way she does them, it eliminates the risk of the bank being able to call it due. And so you may just want to reach out to Kathy.
Jackie, that's a really good point. And yes, subject to is another term for it. I just was trying to, break it down a little bit because, just for clarity. But I'm guessing one thing that you can do, and Kathy may do this, is you can set up an intermediary account where that money is just moving and it's being auto drafted, and that eliminates a lot of the hassle. So that might be something, but definitely talk to Kathy. If she's an expert on that, that would be perfect.
Right. Again, also for seller financing, that was another area you touched on. How are you finding seller finance deals if it's not something just on Zillow that's advertised as like a seller finance offer? How do you know whether or not it's something you should need to ask? What's your strategy for that?
It's all about talking to people. Honestly, every case is different. When you talk with a seller, you really have to be listening the majority of the time, because they're going to tell you what their pain points are, what their problems are. And some of them, the folks that I've done it with, they're fine not getting their money for a couple more months if you can get that property taken care of for them and get that off their hands. And so it's really, you're right, you have to dig a little bit. It's not advertised anywhere, but it just comes from sitting down with them and having that discussion and really understanding the situation that you're in, and not, with any seller, you can't put them all into one bucket and just assume that they've all got these deals that they need to drop for a low cash amount. I mean, some of them will trade, a little higher price for not getting their money later, and that's where this works really well.
This isn't really a conversation that you'd have with a wholesaler or agent. This is something that when you're talking directly to the seller.
Seller financing, yes. So if you're the one if you're the wholesaler or if you're the investor talking directly to the seller, yes. Now I've worked with some wholesalers who have said, look, I've got this deal out here. And I've said, look, that pricing doesn't really work, but why don't we hop on a call with that seller and the three of us can kind of talk through options, and that's where I'll bring up seller financing. So you can work it through, but whoever the end buyer is generally the one that wants to set that up.
And then Alicia asked, what types of sellers are willing to do seller financing in your experience?
So all types. The ones that I find that do it the most are absentee landlords who maybe live a few states away. They can't get there to fix the property up, can't deal with the issues on it. And they're like, look, if you can get me my money in the next 6 months, get this property fixed up and off my plate, and it's no hassle for me, that's going to work. But the key is seller financing only can be used if there is no mortgage on the property. So that's where, when you're talking to people, if you say, hey, how much do you owe on your property? And they say nothing, then you go, bingo, okay, seller financing is in play now. So now I've got cash, I've got seller financing, different options. If they say they have a mortgage, you can't do seller financing, but you could do that subject to mortgage takeover option. So that's why with this, you've got a couple of different roads to go down.
And there's questions, is this mostly for FBOs, for sale by owner?
I'm sorry, say it again, Andrew.
Is this mostly for sale by owners?
Mostly, yes, definitely. Now, if you find something on market and you've got an agent that's savvy and willing to talk through the options, you can bring that up. But it's a lot more difficult if you're dealing with an agent just because they're not as familiar with it. And frankly, in this market, most sellers, if they've got it on the MLS, you're going to get a cash offer in some manner. So it's for FSBOs. It's when you're talking directly to a seller. Yep.
Yeah. Great stuff. I mean, there's a lot of interest around that.
It's the holy grail. I'm telling you guys, if you just get comfortable with it and can have that discussion, I tell people about some of the deals I've done seller financing and it just blows their mind. It's awesome. So it's a great strategy.
All right. Are there any other questions? I think we've hit everything in the chat. Feel free to come up mute and
I think we're at that time now, or we're
yeah.
it up a little bit. Wow, Dan, that was phenomenal.
Thanks, Jackie.
Yeah, very helpful. Good
Well,
stuff. Anyways,
grateful for the opportunity.
Dan's, contact information. As you mentioned, like reach out to him with any questions or suggestions. Someone on here asked about the lenders list. They can get that to Neil. Not sure what lenders list we're talking about, but anyways, I put my email in the chat. Feel free to email me for any like list or anything like that, and I'll figure it out.
Yeah, and I'll just add real quick, what I was referring to there is if you go to TRIA on the list of vendor partners, you'll find some hard money lenders right there. And there were also some and if the next event you're on, as we were scrolling through the sponsors, there were a couple listed on there too. I've worked with several that are involved with TRIA, so I don't want to plug one versus the other, but I'd be more than happy to help if you're looking for a direction to go on it.
Yep, and guys, I'm gonna do a plug for in-person networking. All subgroups are gonna be live next month. I will tell you, you don't know when you're sitting in that, look to the left, look to the right. If you're in a table of 10, somebody in that table most likely is a private money lender. They are all over the place. Network, and don't be afraid to ask. Just say, hey.
100%.
Yeah.
It's been fantastic, Dan. I think it's a great stopping point. So thank you so much for your time. Like I was telling everyone, so motivating to hear, how far you've come and, the amount of time you've been doing it. So this is awesome.
Well, thank you for having me.